Second day in Chicago, man. Second day in Chicago, working on the podcast. I'm sitting at the office desk here in the room, and I got a beautiful view of the city. I wish you guys could see it. Someone's actually cleaning my windows right now in front of me. What's up, bro? What's going on? Anyway, man, I'm up. It's early. And I got bombarded with text messages today over the news that somehow broke this morning or late last night. Either way, I woke up to it. And it's news that I'm not really surprised by, but I am surprised by the amount of people who are so forgiving of WWE's mistakes, so forgiving of WWE's stupidity. I opened up my texts and then I kind of went to the dirt sheets today, and I seen all over the place people talking about Enzo and Cass coming back to the WWE, more importantly, coming back to NXT. And the report that I read stated that Enzo and Cass are being contacted by WWE to be the face of NXT. So I scratched my head over that. Obviously, clickbait title. And I'm like, Enzo and Cass, the face of NXT. Adam Cole is your NXT champion. He is the face of NXT. Johnny Gargano is the face of NXT. You have Tommaso Ciampa, who clearly is probably going to be the biggest babyface upon return in all of WWE. He is the face of NXT. Enzo and Cass are not going to be the face of NXT. But I'm not surprised by this move or the fact that WWE is in contact with them at all. They're in the midst of a war with AEW, and moves like this are going to be made. I don't mind this move being made. I do mind people overlooking WWE stupidity, and that's exactly what we're going to get into today on this major story that's breaking in the WWE right here on the podcast. It's already causing a differing opinion on social media. I got into it calmly with some people that I know on social media, but I just don't understand how forgiving people are of WWE stupidity. Now, if you're a businessman, clearly I understand that this is a good business move. I really do. That's not my issue here. My issue is not with the fact that WWE wants to go out and get Enzo and Cass. They should want Enzo and Cass. There are two guys out there. I don't know the impact that they're going to have on NXT. I'm sure they'll end up being fine. But I don't like the fact that people think that it's okay to blatantly make failures happen or blatantly make mistakes, and those mistakes leading to clear failures. That's what my issue is. If you're a businessman or a business, I understand taking a risk. Everybody takes risks. Sometimes those risks pay off. Sometimes those risks are failures. But in this case, if you know for a fact that the risk that you're about to take is 100% undeniably going to fail, why take the risk to begin with? Why take the risk to begin with? I don't know anybody who would be in the boat of giving Big Cass a chance as a singles guy when WWE did take that risk. He wasn't ready. You could even go all the way back to them, WWE, breaking Enzo and Cass up to begin with. Why would you do that? The only logical answer that we have to that is Vince McMahon doesn't like tag team wrestling. That doesn't mean you have a tag team as popular as Enzo and Cass and break them up, knowing that both guys are undoubtedly gonna sink as a singles act. JD 205 Live needed a face like Enzo to get that brand over. 205 Live was dead before Enzo even got there. They didn't need Enzo Amore. You only harmed the brand even more because you deviated away from what made that roster stand out from everything else that you did in the WWE. You tried to bring Monday night and Tuesday night onto 205 Live, and 205 Live was meant to be a wrestling-heavy program. You're not going to bring Enzo Amore with his act and his lack of wrestling ability and expect people to legitimately care about 205 Live. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You're doing more harm than you are good for the overall nature of the brand. Big Cass, he was put in a feud with Daniel Bryan, of all people. If you can't get yourself over in a feud with Daniel Bryan, I don't know what to tell you, man. I really don't know what to say. On top of that, his in-ring ability was, I don't want to say god-awful, but it wasn't anywhere near the level of being in the ring with Daniel Bryan. He wasn't even a good heel to begin with. He didn't have any mic skill. Enzo was the entire act of that team, and you took him when he didn't have any real strengths of his own, and you put him out there to undoubtedly fail. You knew he wasn't going to get over as a singles act. This is the stereotypical situation of you got weaknesses on one half, you got strengths on the other, but those strengths and weaknesses, when combined, make one big overall great package. Because one guy has something that the other doesn't, back and forth between both of them, that's what made them so good. I'm sure they knew this. I'm sure they knew this going in when they first joined together to be a tag team on NXT. And now here we are, with them gone from the WWE for however many months, and we're all excited about them coming back to the WWE. Why? Why? Yes, I'm excited. I think that they are a great tag team together. I had no problem with Enzo Amore and no problem with Big Cass when they were together. I loved the act. I really did. I had so much hope that WWE was going to build these guys and build around them and make tag team wrestling important again. And they did not do that. They did exactly what we all expected. They ruined them upon main roster debut. They split them up, and then they both undoubtedly failed. And now we're asking ourselves, is this a good move? Yes, it's a good move. It's a good move. It's a good business move. And I'm going to go over exactly why it's a good business move, and I'm going to go over exactly why. It's not that I have an issue with this move. I have an issue with everybody just kind of overlooking WWE's mistakes. If you know something is a mistake and you go and willingly make that mistake, that's called stupidity. That's called stupidity. I don't have any ounce of fucking remorse for stupidity like that. Blatant stupidity is one thing in this fucking business that irks the shit out of me. And it irks me even more that people are so fucking... They're like sheep. They just blindly follow the opinion, the majority opinion on social media, and they don't have a fucking voice and a brain of their own. Stupidity. Businessmen like WWE, a business like WWE, should never be in the business of blatantly making a fucking mistake. Risks are important. I took a fucking risk to do what I do for a living on this fucking channel. I took a risk and it paid off. Businesses take risks, they pay off or they don't. This was a risk that 100% was going to fail, and they did it anyway. For some political fucking agenda, for the agenda of one man, and it went nowhere. They didn't have the benefit, they didn't have the best interests of the talent involved here. They didn't have the best interests of the company on their mind. They didn't have anyone's best interest but Vince McMahon's best interest. He wanted it done, it got done, and it fucking failed. I don't respect that. I don't respect that. And that is the mentality that I'm so fucking pissed off with every single time when I complain about this company. They do and they don't think. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So yes, this opinion of Enzo Cass in the community right now, the report, clearly dividing everybody. You either love Enzo or you fucking hate Enzo. And I mean hate Enzo. I'm not talking about his criminal charges or the charges that were brought against him. He was cleared of all that. I'm not even talking about that. I don't think Enzo is guilty in any sense of the word. He was unjustly fired from an outsider's perspective looking in. What did you want WWE to do? The right thing to do in Enzo's case, he should have never been fired, and WWE should have conducted an investigation, and then at that point when his name was completely cleared and completely innocent, then they should have brought him back to television. Should he have been fired? No. The company acted on a whim. WWE acted because everybody was calling for this guy's head, and WWE did not want any bad PR to come to their company, so I understand why they did it. What they did was wrong, but I understand why they did it. I have no issue with Enzo Amore and his allegations from a year ago, year and a half ago. I don't care about that. That's not even a factor in this entire situation. The factor in this entire situation is the stupidity from WWE to bring these guys back after they had them in their grasp and now expect us to legitimately feel the same way about them as we did when we first seen them on the scene in NXT and on their way to the main roster. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. According to Dave Meltzer, WWE's reached out to former stars Enzo and Big Cass with the thought that they could be the face of NXT, set to debut on the USA Network in just a few weeks. So if this is going to get done, we have about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks to be exact, for this to get done if they want to be on NXT live on the USA Network, or if they want to save them for the October 2nd show, that they could certainly do that as well. Either way, it's going to be with AEW in the back of their mind, because come live programming with NXT now on USA and then AEW going head-to-head with NXT, you're going to need those big surprises. You're going to need people to tune in. You're going to have to give people a hook to tune into the show to see what you're doing differently compared to AEW. So I get it from a business standpoint. Bringing Enzo and Cass as well could be a great thing for the tag team division as well, because right now, with the Undisputed Era beating the Street Profits, and the Street Profits, I would say, future kind of uncertain right now, where they go, whether they stay in NXT or whether they go get ruined on Monday Night Raw, that remains to be seen. But the tag team division right now, there really isn't any solid tag teams in NXT for the Undisputed Era to feud with. They've beaten everybody. Right now, I think the NXT tag team division is at its weakest state. And WWE did enough to ruin NXT's tag team division, because the Street Profits are more than likely getting called up. The War Raiders have wasted away on the main roster. And there really is nobody else down in NXT outside Breezango. I wouldn't mind a feud between Breezango and the Undisputed Era, but that's not going to get the job done. You need a solid foundation of teams to build around the Undisputed Era, and NXT right now doesn't have that. So bringing them into NXT just by a division standpoint makes the most sense out of anything, if they want to come back. We don't know where their heads are at or how they're feeling about this entire situation. This could all be fucking bullshit. It really could. They haven't given any indication that they want to be back, so we don't know. Both Enzo and Cass were released by the WWE in 2018 for various disciplinary actions, but it cannot be disputed that while they were a tag team, they were probably two of the most over performers in company history. Big time over. The report reads as follows. WWE has been in contact with Enzo and Cass about a surprise return to be top stars on the NXT brand. We don't know if they've accepted, but Cass really hasn't done much on the indie scene and has also made it clear he wants to be back. Enzo, who really knows what he's thinking right now? He says a lot of things, but his rap career isn't exactly going anywhere, and he also hasn't done much on the indie scene himself, but he hasn't walked away from wrestling altogether either. We don't know. But the obvious speculation is either a return on the first show, or the way Vince thinks, I could see the third show being the favorites, meaning the third show, October 2nd, head-to-head with All Elite Wrestling. The crowd in Orlando live would probably go nuts if this happened, and keep in mind, we only know they've been talked to, not that they have accepted. But I could also see a lot of social media negativity towards Enzo in NXT as a featured star, but it's a war, and you want surprises, and there just aren't many surprises out there right now. End quote. That's directly from Dave Meltzer. As the report points out, I want to make sure you guys know this. Neither man has been successful since leaving the WWE. But I don't know if you guys have seen recent pictures of Big Cass I know for a fact that House of Glory, being that I am with House of Glory, we looked at Enzo, we looked at Cass, bringing them in as a tag team, or just bringing in Cass for High Intensity 8. It was talked about. And it was talked about because we've seen Cass and a picture of Big Cass. He looked to be in the best shape of his entire life. Looking at Big Cass, I can see Vince McMahon wanting Big Cass back just by his looks alone in the WWE. So we don't know where their mindsets are, both Enzo and Cass and WWE. Collectively, I could see it happening, but we just don't know. Now, neither Enzo or Cass have commented on this report, but Enzo did recently speak to Wrestling Inc. about his time in WWE and whether he could see himself returning. He says, and I quote, this is directly from Enzo, "I've always felt when I was on the microphone in WWE, I was just doing what anyone in my hometown would have done. You know what I mean? Like, they've handed you a microphone, are you kidding, in front of a ton of people on TV, like, what are you going to do with it? I just felt like I was in the kitchen when I was out there hanging out with my people." Now, Enzo went on to say if he'd be interested in working with the WWE again, but he certainly didn't rule out a return as well. He says this, and I quote, "I could never see myself working a schedule like that anytime soon again. I mean, you just never say never with anything, so I just know that absence makes the heart grow fonder. All is forgiven in time. I find that, and that goes on both sides of the coin because I work for the company where at one point I got fired, was upset in that moment. I was so angered. But then you look at it and you understand the significance of the timing of the situation, and you have to let that all burn off. Man, I don't hold any grudges. Do I want to go back there? Absolutely. But not right now. I am enjoying so much of what I'm doing now and being in these locker rooms and meeting these guys that I can't imagine going back to a world where I'm on the road 300 days, over 250 to 280 matches in a single year." End quote. So that's what Enzo said. There's been no statement from Big Cass. Big Cass, obviously he would love to be back because he had some disciplinary stuff happen to him. He was very rebel-like. Whether that had to, be thrown in with the whole Carmella situation. They were an item. I don't know if that led to him and his downfall. He clearly wasn't of the right mind. He was not in the right mindset. Time, like Cass, away from the WWE to clear yourself and get yourself back on the straight and narrow and get yourself back to looking the way you should have looked. It all obviously is working out for him right now, so maybe a second chance he feels he's ready for. And maybe WWE feels the same about that. Again, let me revert back to what I stated here in the beginning. It's not the fact that I don't want them back in the WWE, because I certainly would love to see them back in the original role that they were designed for. And that is as a tag team and as a big tag team in which you can build an entire division around. Having them separated was one of the worst blatant mistakes that you could have possibly ever made, and I don't know why it was done outside of Vince McMahon and his wants and desires. It was to fit the agenda of one man. And that does not make for a good business move. Because Vince clearly is the end-all be-all. He wants it. It's going to happen. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It just needs to happen. That's not the mentality that this company needs to have. There's no one in this company that can say, you know what, Vince, I think that's a mistake. They need to be together. They're stronger together. I don't think we're going to find any direction for them separate. I don't think Enzo being on 205 Live is the right move. I don't think Big Cass being on his own on SmackDown Live is going to work out. He's not ready for it. They're still young. They're still growing. They're still maturing. They have a lot to do together as a tag team before you even start breaking them up to go on separate paths. They were so over, and why? And this just goes back to the WWE not listening to the audience. How could you listen to that audience and then say, you know what, yeah, we're going to break them up? That's just blatant stupidity in my eyes, and I don't understand how people overlook WWE stupidity in this thing to begin with. Now everybody wants them back, but you're overlooking the fact that they should have never even been gone from the company to begin with, and they should have never been broken up. They should have never been broken up. That blatant stupidity is what irks me. That's what irks me. Lightning in a bottle. You had it one time. It worked out, and it was phenomenal. Do you honestly expect lightning in a bottle to happen the second time and give you that same similar feeling from the first time you seen it happen? Do you really expect that lightning in a bottle to have the same feeling and effect as the original time that you had these guys when you did? The answer is no. The answer is no. This is not me thinking short-sighted. This is not me thinking, a certain way just to go against the majority opinion. It was a fucking stupid move. this all goes back to one fucking thing and one point. WWE doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and WWE doesn't know the talent that they have on their roster at their fingertips. They don't! Because if they did, this is not even the only instance in that. Mistakes like this would never have happened to begin with. This is a great move. Yes, it really is. From them coming in, for them being the face of the NXT Tag Team division and being treated and built around to make that division feel special and unique again, to give them some extra fuel to the fire against AEW, having Enzo on the microphone. He is one of those guys where you listen to him speak and you stop what you're doing to listen to what he has to say. There are negatives that come along with this. Is it desperate for WWE to do this? Absolutely. Because they're seeking any type of attention that they can to combat AEW. This move is not really needed if you want to think about it. For a tag team perspective, or from a tag team perspective, yes, it is needed. But it's not wrong of anybody to think that this is desperation on WWE's end either. Because it certainly is. You're going out there and doing something that you don't really need in the spirit of war. You have enough on NXT to combat AEW. So Enzo and Cass are not really needed in this situation. But how are people going to react to Enzo? Are people going to be just as forgiving of Enzo Amore? Some people might not like Enzo Amore. Some people might think that he is not right for professional wrestling. Some people might not like his antics or what he has to say or what he does in that ring. There's a lot of negatives still around Enzo Amore. Bringing in Big Cass. What does that say about Big Cass? Big Cass is still not ready to be back in the WWE as a solo act. You're pretty much bringing them in and admitting to everybody that, yeah, we fucked up and we don't care that we fucked up. That negligence is what irks the shit out of me. But Enzo can't succeed without Big Cass, and Big Cass can't succeed without Enzo Amore. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to right the mistakes that you made the first time? Or are you going to do the same thing over and over again now that you got two popular guys amongst pro wrestling fan base? You're going to go out there and make the same mistake again? I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not. This is a good business move. This is a good move for the NXT Tag Team division. This is a good move for NXT in general. I think they fit NXT more so than anything else. But at the end of the day, please don't overlook the mistakes that WWE has made. Don't. This is WWE acting desperate. Absolutely. This is WWE admitting that they fucked up. Yes. But the more that they fuck up, the more that people are forgiving, and I don't understand that. Because these mistakes should not be happening. Blatant mistakes and errors like this should not be happening when you know for a fact that it is undoubtedly going to fail. I hope that they come back. I do think that everybody deserves a second chance. Enzo was wrongfully accused of something. WWE went about him and made a mistake. WWE went about Big Cass, made a mistake. They both were fired for different reasons. Enzo because WWE didn't want a PR nightmare. Big Cass for his own reasons. Both of them are on the straight and narrow now. They can be controversial, but in the end, controversy is going to bring more eyes to the product. I just don't like how forgiving people are of WWE's mistakes. And the reason why the quality of WWE programming is so low is for that reason in itself. You are too forgiving of everything the company does, and you turn the other cheek when these types of things should have never happened to begin with. That's my thoughts on Enzo and Cass, man. I really don't know what else to say. I hope they come back. I hope WWE makes them into what I expected them to be the first time around, and we'll see if these reports are true. And if it is, it's going to be a big move. Because it's going to bring more eyeballs on NXT, and that ultimately is what WWE wants in the end in this war with AEW. This is episode 289. This is part number 1, live from Chicago, here on Off the Script. Don't go anywhere, man. We're going to hit the introduction. I got more news on this podcast today. We are going to go over WWE possibly planning a draft. Yes, a legitimate draft between Raw and SmackDown to make the rosters permanent. Vince McMahon reportedly building trust so he can step back from the WWE. This is stemming from the report that I did last weekend on Off the Script. And the reason why Stone Cold Steve Austin is at MSG for Monday Night Raw in just a couple of weeks. Also, the reason why Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode were teamed up. And Sasha Banks, is she Paul Heyman's new pet project? We're going to go over all this right here on the podcast. Don't go anywhere. We'll hit the intro, and I'll be right back live from Chicago.
Delete this man.
Alive with it. People still What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining me right here on Off the Script. It is episode 289, part number 1 for your Friday, August 30th, 2019. Tomorrow night, the big night, AEW All Out. I will be live there with Ticket Drew. It's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see what AEW does right before their debut on TNT, man. It's going to be really special. I know it, and I have a great feeling that AEW will undoubtedly deliver one of the best pay-per-views of the entire year. But we're here to talk about the major news in WWE. There were some major stories that broke, as we just talked about the Enzo Amore and Big Cass situation. At some point this weekend, I am definitely going to talk about the Bray Wyatt situation. Apparently, there was a leak. Now, I don't know what this means. I don't know if this is legit. I guess we'll find out in the coming weeks. But apparently, Bray Wyatt might be getting a Universal Championship title match against either Braun Strowman or Seth Rollins, and that will culminate at Hell in a Cell. I don't know what that means, but all I know is I have to go over because I have a very strong opinion about why Bray Wyatt and the Universal Championship, A, should not happen yet, and B, if you do that, all the work that you did with Seth Rollins and trying to get him over is going to be exactly presented in the way that I feel it's being presented right now. Forced, unnatural, nothing about it is organic, and you pretty much are telling everybody that, listen, Rollins is our guy, but we're going to go with Bray Wyatt instead because he's the hotter hand right now in the WWE, which will render Seth Rollins pretty much worthless. And everything that you did for Seth Rollins to pretty much beat Brock Lesnar and everything leading up to that match at SummerSlam with Brock Lesnar will have been a waste of time. Because you could have easily just put Bray Wyatt in that situation from the get-go. Why go the second round with Rollins and Lesnar when Bray Wyatt was only your end result anyway? So we'll figure that out. We'll talk about that at some point this weekend right here on Off the Script, man. But I'm happy to be in Chicago. Trying to get this done as early as I can. I got a couple of brewery tours, man, because I can't go anywhere without some good craft beer. So I got some brewery tours lined up today, but I got to get this news out to you guys first because you're always my top priority. I love taking the podcast on the road with me. It's the great thing about working from home. You can pretty much take your work anywhere you go. I'm happy to be back in Chicago, man. It's a beautiful city, and I'm feeling the wrestling buzz right now in and around the city. And I'll be at StarCast as well all weekend. So if you guys are going to StarCast, you guys will see me. I'll be there. Come up and call me a goon. Call me an asshole. Whatever you guys want to do. But I will be there with a cold beverage in my hand. And I'll be enjoying the wrestling festivities this weekend. But let's get into the podcast, man. Let's hit up the usual stuff that we do here. Follow me on social media at JD from NY206. That is on Twitter and Instagram. It would be beneficial to you guys to follow me on Twitter so you guys are notified of when I go live with any uploads this weekend, or if you guys want my opinion on late-breaking news. I was tweeting about the Enzo and Cass situation early this morning, so make sure you guys go and follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. You'll be seeing beers and food and wrestling-related activity over there. At JD from NY206 on both the gram and the little bluebird, man. So make sure you guys do that. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on that bell for all notifications. That is very important. If you guys want the weekly best in the YWC of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and then you got this flagship podcast every single weekend. Hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Turn on that bell and make sure you guys are notified of everything that goes live on the channel, including some gaming content, man. We did some Super Mario Maker as well this week, and we got more gaming content coming up in the weeks to come. Some nice surprises for you guys. Patreon.com/JD from NY206 if you guys want to support the podcast via Patreon. You guys get the audio versions of Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night. That's Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. All audio versions on Patreon only. Saves your bandwidth. You could download them right to your device of choice, and it's easy, man, because those things don't go up anywhere but Patreon. And if you guys want exclusive content not available on YouTube, you guys can certainly sign up for that. Patreon.com/JD from NY206. If you missed anything that I uploaded on the channel, man, make sure you guys check out the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT reviews in depth. And we got some gaming content, like I said. Plus, on Thursday, we did an AEW All Out preview and predictions. Over an hour of my thoughts on everything going on with All Out's card. 10 matches in total. I give my opinion on everything happening on Saturday night. So make sure you guys check that out as well. And the podcast today is brought to you by you-know-who, man. Don't act like you're surprised. Harry's.com/scripts. Why Harry's? I actually got to shave before Starcast, man. I brought my Harry's with me. And I brought it with me with the travel blade cover because it keeps my razor dry and easy on the go, man, which I'll talk about in a second. Join the 10 million. I'm part of the 10 million. I want you guys to be part of the 10 million who have tried Harry's. Claim your offer today. $13 value trial set by using our unique link, harrys.com/scripts. They were tired of paying for razors. The founders were tired of paying for razors that were overpriced and overdesigned. They knew a great shave didn't come from vibrating heads and flex balls and handles that looked like some cheap prop in a sci-fi movie. They fixed all that, man, by combining a clean, simple design with quality, durable blades at a fair price. They got over 25-star reviews on Trustpilot and Google. They actually bought a world-class blade factory in Germany that's been making quality blades, some of the best razor blades in the world, for 99 years. Their replacement cartridges are just $2, and all Harry's blades come with a 100% quality guarantee. If you don't love your shave, let them know, and they will give you a full refund. JD, this sounds great. What am I going to get when I sign up using your unique link, harrys.com/script? Well, you're going to get a razor handle, which is so nice. It is so great, man. Choice of colors up to you. Orange, the navy blue, or the evergreen. 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and the ever-important razor blade trimmer blade, man. It's unbelievable. You can turn that around and you can get those perfect angles for you to get those fine shaves you need, man. Rich lathering shave gel and a travel blade cover, which keeps your razor dry and easy on the go. I traveled to Chicago, and the first thing that I packed was my Harry's razor with the travel blade cover. Listeners of Off the Script can redeem their trial set by going to harrys.com/script. Make sure you guys use harrys.com/script. Let them know that JD sent you to help support Off the Script. We're going to start off with this one, man. WWE is contemplating a draft for Raw and SmackDown to make the rosters separate and permanent. Wow. Something logical in the news about WWE. I hope to God that this happens. This is the one thing that needs to happen more so than anything outside the obvious on Monday night and Tuesday night, soon to be Friday night with the quality of the shows. This is the one thing that needs to happen more so than anything. How many times have I expressed this over the past couple of weeks? These rosters need to be separate. They need to have separate identities come October 4th. And both of these rosters should have absolutely nothing to do with one another. Absolutely nothing. I don't want Raw to know SmackDown. I don't want SmackDown to know Raw. Only when it matters. King of the Ring, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series. Because it's going to make everything that much more important in the end if you stick to the goddamn plan. The wild card rule needs to die completely. Just like the Mets baseball season. Dead completely. Ooh. How many of you Mets fans are now salty? I don't know, the Braves got their own fucking problems. Anyway, WWE is considering a draft, and this is going to make the rosters permanent. This report is coming from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and it notes that while major changes aren't expected, there will still be a few strategic moves across the rosters later this year. Right now, there is a concept of another draft, and this will build permanent Raw and SmackDown rosters. Now, what we are originally being told is that there wouldn't be any major moves, but some changes will happen, and this all relies on Vince McMahon. Everything right now, as far as strategic moves, is being kept quiet, and USA Network and Fox will be the first to know outside of everybody once decisions are decided upon. WWE last held a draft, or whatever you want to call it, shake-up draft, in April of this year following WrestleMania. The last actual draft took place in the summer of 2016, which actually created SmackDown and one of the best versions of SmackDown that I think I've ever seen, and a version of SmackDown that was putting on quality of shows that were damn near NXT-like level. I'll never forget it, man. I always hype that era of SmackDown, the Ryan Ward era of SmackDown Live, and then Jinder Mahal became WWE Champion, and then WWE pretty much killed SmackDown Live as we know it, and nothing was ever the same. To where we sit today, and SmackDown is just as bad as Monday Night Raw on most weeks. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just there, it exists. SmackDown is just there. Nothing is important that comes out of that show. And how could it be important when Vince McMahon is writing the fucking show via Skype? Wasn't even there. And it's in the notes today. Vince McMahon had a complete rewrite of this show, and he was telling people what he wanted via Skype because he wasn't there. Yet he hired a new executive director of SmackDown Live who is yet to executive direct. What was the point? Goes back to exactly what I stated. This move was made as a Hail Mary pass in the fourth quarter with the time winding down. It was WWE's last desperation move to really keep the stockholders at bay and then maybe steal a headline or two away from All Elite Wrestling. That's all it was, folks. It was a Hail Mary move that clearly was dropped, and WWE looks like a loser anyway in the end. Now, the last time we seen a shakeup was in April following WrestleMania, like I said, but there wasn't a lot of points made with that draft. WWE really didn't make that draft feel special, or shakeup, I should say, feel special, because he only instituted the wild card rule, which kind of rendered everything in that shakeup worthless. Absolutely worthless. Where the wild card rule now is causing chaos as far as a booking and creative perspective, and the wild card rule really gives a sense of WWE not really giving a shit, or not really caring about logic, or not really making anything seem overly important, because they have Raw superstars show up on SmackDown Live, and they have SmackDown Live superstars show up on Raw. So the focus on titles and feuds and certain talents really go and get flushed down the toilet, because the wild card rule exactly is what it is. It's using the top guys from both brands, and it renders pretty much everybody in the mid card and the lower card useless. They were never going to use any of those guys as far as the wild card rule. They're never going to bring in Apollo Crews to Monday Night or SmackDown Live. He's on Monday Night Raw. They're never going to bring in Apollo Crews to SmackDown Live. They're never going to bring, I would say, who else is there? A War Raiders is a good example from Raw to SmackDown. Those guys aren't used. They're going to use the Club or the OC. They're going to use a Styles. They're going to use a Rollins. They're going to use a Kofi and a Roman, right? Those are the types of guys they're going to use, a Randy Orton. They were never meant for the mid-card and the lower card type of guys with the wild card rule. So it was so short-sighted right from the get-go, and it needs to die because it's ultimately ruining these shows. Now, while the rule has been used less and less over the past couple of weeks, it's still used, and when it's used, they're not really they're not giving the fans an example, or they're not giving a fan, the reason why these moves are happening, while the wildcard rule is still being instituted. The commentators never go over it. And I heard from Meltzer that after SummerSlam, it was supposed to go away completely in a very quiet and very nonchalant way. That clearly is still not the case. But what WWE needs to do here is it really needs to get back to making these brands separate, especially with Fox and USA. Now, the rumor of USA not wanting anything to do with Fox and Fox not wanting anything to do with USA because they're on both different networks, that might have some credibility. There might be some smoke to that fire. But as far as from what we see on a TV, quality of TV perspective, I don't want to see Kofi Kingston on Monday Night Raw. I don't want to see The Miz, who is a Raw superstar, challenging Shinsuke Nakamura, who is a SmackDown superstar, for a SmackDown championship. You're taking opportunities away from everybody on SmackDown Live, and you're pretty much telling everybody that you're lazy because you can't book for the talent that you have on SmackDown Live. That's the way I see it. I don't want things like that to happen. I want separate rosters. Nobody thought that this was going to completely fuck the entire spectrum of WWE. This renders the Survivor Series useless because for the last 3 years, you've done Raw versus SmackDown. How could we get excited about Raw versus SmackDown when we see Raw versus SmackDown on a fucking Clash of Champions pay-per-view when you got The Miz, who's a Raw superstar, challenging Nakamura, a SmackDown superstar? The Survivor Series is coming 2 months early. Doesn't really give any importance to the Survivor Series, unless you were just going to go with a different concept for Survivor Series, which I find hard to believe. WWE messed everything up, and they don't really care, and I don't even think they realize that the wildcard rule messed everything up. Separate rosters. You need to build a main event, a mid-card, a tag team, and a women's division on one brand, and the same thing for the other brand. If you want some sense of the wildcard rule to still be used, then you combine the tag team divisions for the men, and you combine the women's division and have both women's division and the tag team division go from Raw to SmackDown while keeping that sense of identity with the main card and the mid card separate from one another. Meaning the Universal Championship and the WWE Championship, the US Championship and the Intercontinental Championship will remain separate, and nobody from those divisions are able to jump brands back and forth. The tag teams, I would love to see, because that's pretty much, in my eyes, a great way to fill the 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. And if WWE got behind tag team wrestling, it would be even better. You already have the women floating back and forth between the brands, so just put that out there as far as the rules go. Not only can the tag team champions in WWE, as far as the women go, can lobby from Raw to SmackDown and jump from Raw to SmackDown, but you have an overall division in which if you have Ronda Rousey show up on Raw, she could certainly show up on SmackDown Live, which I think Fox would appreciate. I don't think they're going to complain too much about NBC Universal and USA Network if they're getting Ronda Rousey to show up on SmackDown Live for a big angle. I think they would actually be open to that. So if the tag team champions can float, why can't the rest of the division float? You know? You really can't have something happen and then say no for the other thing. So you might as well just make it even across the board, 100%. All women can float between Raw and SmackDown, meaning we could see a Charlotte on Monday Night Raw. We could see an Ember Moon on Monday Night Raw. We could see a Sasha Banks on SmackDown Live. We could see a Becky Lynch on SmackDown Live. And better yet, while you're at it, get rid of one championship and make one universal championship for the entire division. All you need is one championship. Same thing for the men. I've said this time and time again. I will not let go of this concept. This is the one thing that I think would be great across both shows and really give some sense of importance, not only to the overall divisions, but you'll fill in those shows quite nicely when you want to have a different women's match. It eliminates the rinse and repeat, same old fucking concept that WWE is doing. We won't see the same matches over and over again every single week. We won't see Bayley versus Nikki Cross 3 weeks in a row. You know? There'll be difference across both brands. Same thing with the tag team division. You got so many tag teams on that main roster that you're not using right now. You know, I would love to see that be brought back into importance and brought back to prominence. I just think it's a great way to really have the best of both worlds. And like I mentioned, you know, if Fox is going to complain about there being separate rosters, who knows how they're feeling. You know, when Ronda Rousey shows up on SmackDown Live, I doubt a name like that is really going to upset Fox, where Ronda Rousey shows up on Raw, but if Ronda Rousey shows up on SmackDown, WWE gets the best of both, and Fox gets the best of both. USA gets the best of both. So I think this is a great move. And the draft, as far as what you do with the draft, if you are going to build an entire draft, it's going to be a ratings monster because people love that type of shit. You got to really go into the sports-like direction. You got to be overly analytical with it. Give me a reason why. Present a sports center-like atmosphere. Get people's opinions on why they don't want to go to Raw or why they don't want to go to SmackDown, why they don't want to change brands at all, why moving to Raw is going to be beneficial for their career, why having a change of scenery is going to be better for their career. I want in-depth analysis. I want the moves to really mean something. I want a Seth Rollins being drafted to SmackDown Live to mean something of importance. I want it to be important to him, and I want it to be important for the overall health of SmackDown Live. I want a Ricochet being drafted to SmackDown Live to mean something. I want an Aleister Black being drafted to Monday Night Raw to mean something, so on and so forth. That needs to happen. And you need to create a Sports Center-like atmosphere. It's got to resemble an NBA draft or an NFL draft or an MLB draft. It's got to resemble a real-life draft. You can't go in there and half-ass it. You got to have whoever's in charge of these shows be represented. You got to make it feel special. And if there's no matches that happen on that night, so what? So what? You have a whole show dedicated to the draft, and you build around that. You maybe give a match or two here or a match or two there. Whatever. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to showcase the talent being drafted that night in some random fucking match that doesn't mean anything. You're there to watch the draft. The draft is the most important. You build around the draft. It's got to physically mean something at the end of that 3 hours. I'm assuming it's going to take place on Monday Night Raw. And you don't need drafts to happen on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live. Monday Night Raw is the flagship show. You build the draft on Monday Night Raw. Or Fox wants to get involved. SmackDown Live, that first show, could be a great draft episode if they want to go about that. But everything needs to mean something. I wish WWE would get into this mentality of everything that they do on their shows legitimately means something and can be used to build towards the shows that come after. Everything that you do means something. NXT, it's the NXT mentality. Everything that NXT does is done for a reason. Everything that you see on NXT is going to build towards something on episode 3 or episode 6. And when we get to episode 6, whatever happened in episode 1 or 2 is going to be talked about. And it's going to be brought back into importance and prominence. And it's going to be used to tell the overall story. WWE does not do that. They rarely do it. If ever. That needs to happen. And the draft needs to be important. I can't tell you how important of a move this is. And I could talk about this for hours. This is important. Hopefully WWE goes through with this rumor, according to Dave Meltzer. Now, Vince McMahon reportedly is building trust up so he can step back from the WWE. This is another article to go with what we talked about last week, where Vince, with the XFL starting up in 2020, is going to take a step back to concentrate on the XFL. Clearly, that's never going to happen. And if he takes a step back, what good does it mean? Because he's writing these shows via Skype. He doesn't necessarily even need to be there. He could be in doing XFL duties and still Skype into WWE and tell them, I want this script rewritten completely. I want it ripped up. I want a brand new script at 7 o'clock right before we go live with 1 hour notice. So clearly, him taking a step back, him not being there means nothing because he's always going to have some sort of influence over what is seen on these shows. Now, WWE appointed Paul Heyman as executive director of Raw, and Eric Bischoff holds the same title on SmackDown, but Eric Bischoff has not had any creative say whatsoever in these shows. The transition might take some time, but the plan is for Vince McMahon to have the opportunity to step away from WWE if he needs to. Will Vince ever think to himself, I need to step away? The answer is no. It's like an alcoholic. If you are an alcoholic, you have a desire to constantly keep drinking all day long, every single day, and you are absolutely just obsessed, and that's the only thing you're thinking about. Vince McMahon is like an alcoholic. He is in charge and has so much power over what happens on TV. he's never going to let go and never going to give full responsibility to somebody else, even though there are reports that he is trying to build trust. He's not building trust with anybody if he's only going to oversee everybody even when he's not there. The only person he's building trust with is himself. That's it. Because he's the only one, Vince McMahon is the only one that trusts himself. He doesn't trust anybody else to do his job. And that is what's killing WWE right now. The only one Vince McMahon trusts is himself. That is it. The transition's going to take some time. If he needs to step away from WWE, he's trying to build trust so that if he needs to step away, he can. And the XFL's relaunch is happening in February of 2020. And it's also adding a lot on Vince McMahon's plate. We can only assume that he has so much to do that he's not going to be worried about what happens on the WWE side of things. But there was a report that the transition for McMahon during this XFL relaunch period, where he is pretty much depending on people to take over for him if need be, it all depends on how much power Vince McMahon is willing to give up. How much of that power is he willing to give up? You know, at the end of the day, it's all about what Vince wants. So no matter if it's Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, Jesus Christ himself, it's all about what Vince McMahon wants at the end of the day. How much he's willing to let them go as far as making a decision without him. So right now, we're not at that stage yet. So we haven't seen any major changes at all to these shows. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Watch the fucking show on Monday and Tuesday night, and you know that no changes have been instituted. Nothing! When we all know that these shows need to be completely turned upside down. So, Vince McMahon is in his mid-70s. He just turned 74 this week. And the report says, if you understand how the business world works, it's just not possible for him to give power to somebody else when he's had power over these shows for so long. It doesn't work that way. It's going to take a long time to develop trust in the eyes of Vince McMahon. Now, again, we could go through a WWE transitional period here with the move to SmackDown Live and Fox and that new partnership being, you know, in the public eye on October 4th. That is a new transition. That's a transitional phase for WWE. Like I said, it needs to be a reset button. Vince McMahon will always micromanage everything. That still won't keep him away from calling writers via Skype hours before the show needs to go on the air asking for a total rewrite. Vince McMahon did write the entire episode of SmackDown Live via a Skype phone call with his creative team. Vince wasn't at SmackDown, as Dave Meltzer reported. The reason why he wasn't there is because he's attending meetings with a few people in charge of specific XFL teams. So he actually rewrote SmackDown via Skype, and that was confirmed by Dave Meltzer. I don't get it. There's a lot of wrong here, folks. There's a lot of wrong here in all of this. Vince McMahon, no matter what he does as far as building trust, it's never going to be in the way that we need it or want it to be. Vince is personally sitting down with these people. Vince is sitting down with Paul Heyman. Vince is sitting down with whomever is going to be in charge of SmackDown Live. I don't know if that's going to be Bischoff. I really don't know. But let's use Paul Heyman as an example. Paul Heyman, slowly but surely, is becoming a yes man to Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon already has yes men in charge that are there every single week. Bruce Pritchard, Kevin Dunn, right? If Paul Heyman is even contemplating going outside of the typical WWE bubble, more than likely he'll have a little dose of his creativity shown. But the overall feel of the show is always going to have a Vince McMahon feel because Vince McMahon is always going to have people he trusts there when he's not there. Kevin Dunn is always going to be there. Bruce Pritchard is always going to be there. God knows whoever else is wrapped around Vince McMahon's thumb is going to be there. So no matter if Vince McMahon is there or not, the show is always going to resemble what Vince McMahon wants because Vince McMahon has his people in place all the time when he's not there. Vince could walk away. Vince could do XFL things. That doesn't mean Vince is going to let Paul Heyman completely run SmackDown Live or Monday Night Raw. Or in Eric Bischoff's case, SmackDown Live, Paul Heyman with Monday Night Raw. It's always going to be a case of Vince is going to get what he wants because he has people in there that he trusts. You think they're going to allow Paul Heyman to go over Vince McMahon's head when they are just like Vince McMahon? They are clones of what Vince McMahon wants. And like I said, Paul Heyman is becoming a Vince McMahon yes man. Paul Heyman's influence on this show has barely been noticed by anybody. It's just as bad as it was. I do sense a difference. I do sense that they're changing some things here and there, from presentation to the fact that there is now wrestling back during the commercials, and they're not doing elimination matches, and they're not having 2 out of 3 falls matches every single week. They're not really going on and on and on about having no wrestling during the commercials, whatever. We even seen a video package to start Monday Night Raw several weeks ago. We seen the opening theme with the highlights of Monday Night Raw come on at the top of the hour instead of Michael Cole welcoming us to so-and-so city. This is Monday Night Raw. It was a different change of pace. It actually resembled some sort of difference. But Paul Heyman is becoming a yes man in WWE, and Vince McMahon, if I am the type of person who has learned anything over the years, Vince McMahon gets what he wants. If you don't think that Vince McMahon is teaching Paul Heyman to run the show in Vince McMahon's vision while Vince McMahon is not there, you're an idiot. You're a complete blithering idiot. Paul Heyman is never going to be allowed to run these shows completely, and this was only done for the reasons that I mentioned, folks. While Vince McMahon's away, the cat, or the mice, I should say, what is it, the mice? Or the mice will play, the cat will play, whatever. Vince McMahon's the cat, the mice in this, or the mouse in this situation is Paul Heyman. While Vince McMahon's away, Paul Heyman, the mouse, will not be able to play because he's going to expect a vision of what he wants through Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman's a yes man. He's only going to book Monday Night Raw as Vince McMahon wants it and as Vince McMahon sees it. And Vince McMahon will manipulate Paul Heyman to do what he wants while he's not there. Meanwhile, that's not what needs to happen. Because Monday Night Raw just has this same familiar feeling to it. It's got this certain sameness to it. So no matter who's in there, it's always going to be the same thing. If Paul Heyman is there and Vince McMahon's not there, Paul Heyman's going to run the show as Vince McMahon wants it to be run. And if Paul Heyman is there and Vince McMahon's not there and Paul Heyman wants to deviate away from the regular formula of Monday Night Raw, he's always going to have Kevin Dunn and Bruce Pritchard to answer to, and they will not allow anything that Vince McMahon doesn't approve of. So this is a lose-lose situation. We, the fans, lose. Paul Heyman looks like a fucking idiot. And it goes back to what I said from the very beginning. The only reason why this move was made was to take the heat off of Vince McMahon, because we all know Vince McMahon is the creative end-all, be-all for these shows. And if Vince McMahon appointed a new executive director in Paul Heyman and in Eric Bischoff, who we have yet to see, if we know that they are in the public spotlight as the ones who are in charge creatively of these shows, then Vince McMahon is not going to have the heat on him anymore. He'll be able to walk away and do what he wants, yet he's still running the show through their name. So when the shows suck, and we go on social media and complain about it, and people need someone to blame, we're going to blame Paul Heyman and not Vince McMahon. That's the only reason why these moves were made. And the funny thing is, Vince McMahon lied blatantly to his shareholders. Oh, I hired Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff as executive directors of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live, so that I don't need to be in the weeds anymore, and I can give them leeway to creatively write on these shows and create a much better version of Monday Night Raw. Bullshit. Bullshit. I would love to show the stock. I wish I could fucking physically just barge into that boardroom, that shareholders meeting, and I wish I could present them the report from Dave Meltzer that Vince McMahon just said that he doesn't want to be in the weeds anymore, yet is rewriting these scripts, ripping up the original script on SmackDown Live and rewriting the fucking show in his own vision via Skype when he's not even there. How is that Vince McMahon removing himself from the fucking weeds? It's not. He lied to his shareholders, and I don't think they would appreciate being lied to. Fucking ridiculous, man. You people are so gullible sometimes. Oh, WWE's changing. There's nothing changing. There's nothing changing. When you read that Vince McMahon's writing these shows via Skype, ordering a complete rewrite, how has that changed? I would love to know what the original show looked like. I would love to know what the original show looked like without Vince McMahon's fingerprints all over it. Was it good? Probably better than what the fuck we got on Tuesday night. Had to be, because that show was miserable. I wonder how bad it was that Vince felt that he needed to change it. Was it as worse as what we got on Tuesday? I don't know. We'll never know. But that's not change. That's not change. That's only a power-hungry 74-year-old man who needs to go away completely. These shows need to be told. The quality of these shows are suffering, and Monday Night Raw needs to be presented through the eyes of a different set of eyes. A different vision. That's it. Paul Heyman, I would love to see what Paul Heyman could do when he's 100%. I would love to see a Monday Night Raw with Paul Heyman's influence 100%. No influence from Vince. No influence from Pritchard. No influence from Dunn. I'd love to see what it would be. Guarantee you it would be better than anything we got. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. Because when Vince is away, Paul Heyman's going to do the same shit just to appease Vince McMahon. And that's exactly what we are seeing as we move on into the impending AEW debut on TNT. Monday Night Raw is so bad that they can't sell tickets to the MSG show for September 10th and September 9th. I believe September 9th and September 10th, or September 10th and September 11th, whatever. Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live are going to be at MSG in September 9th. September 9th and September 10th. Steve Austin is back, and the only reason why he is back is because WWE cannot sell out Madison Square Garden. What they have him do, I don't know. He'll probably end up stroking Seth Rollins' cock, as he did last time we seen him on Monday Night Raw via Skype. Steve Austin was just at the Raw reunion, but WWE is doubling down rather quick and calling him back for yet another appearance. Mike Johnson was asked during PW Insider Elite Audio why WWE is bringing in Steve Austin for their September 9th episode of Raw. This episode will air from Madison Square Garden in New York City. There is a very good reason why Steve Austin is being called in, and it has to do with low ticket sales WWE has experienced so far. A lot of people, he says, and I quote, a lot of people ask me why Steve Austin was added to Raw in the Garden. It's quite simple. They have not sold out the Garden. They're only half sold out for Raw and a little bit less than half for SmackDown Live based on the seating maps I've seen. So they're going to add some additional attractions to try and bring people in. There's a reason why The Undertaker was promoted for SmackDown Live as well, because of that very same reason, which goes back to what I reported in my own words. You didn't hear this in the reports. Why WWE brought back The Undertaker for the Extreme Rules pay-per-view to team him with Roman Reigns. Why is that, folks? Because they knew that selling a pay-per-view or getting a pay-per-view in the eyes of the fans to be important 3 weeks following Stomping Grounds was not going to happen. Because it was just going to be the same shit that we seen on Stomping Grounds at Extreme Rules. They needed to sell this show with a big name in the form of The Undertaker. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't want a Stomping Grounds situation where they only had 5,000-6,000 seats sold for that show. They didn't want the same thing in Philadelphia for Extreme Rules. So that's why they got The Undertaker, and they seem to be doing the same thing here. SmackDown's not selling. Let's get The Undertaker on Tuesday night. Monday Night Raw is not near a sellout. They got to get Steve Austin back to sell out Madison Square Garden. So what does that say to everybody that is listening to me and reading these reports and hearing the rumors of Austin and The Undertaker coming back from Madison Square Garden? What does it say to you? It says to you that the WWE has no trust in their top talent, that they can simply go in there and book who they have and make a successful showing at Madison Square Garden. They can't do that. And WWE has nobody to blame but themselves. WWE's vision for the last several years, ever since The Rock left the WWE to become the most highest paid man in Hollywood. He's literally the highest paid man in Hollywood. He's the most successful actor in all of Hollywood right now. Where did he come from? Came from the WWE. WWE does not want another situation in form of The Rock. They don't want to build up someone so big that is in the public spotlight like The Rock was, and then have him go away and venture off into movies and then ultimately forget about where he came from and forget about the WWE and become bigger than the WWE. Stone Cold Steve Austin is bigger than the WWE. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock are bigger than the WWE. They don't want that. They don't want a Seth Rollins to become bigger than the WWE. They don't want even a Roman Reigns to become bigger than the WWE, because then, at that point, they look so bad in the end, you know? They don't want to build a person like that up ultimately for them to just go away and never have anything to do with the company ever again. And that is ultimately their downfall, because you're paying for it. You are legitimately paying for it. You don't have a big attraction that generates fan interest. You don't have a big attraction to generate ratings like you used to do. People aren't paying to come see the live shows because you don't have a top-tier talent like a Rock or a Stone Cold Steve Austin on your active current roster. Stone Cold embarrassed everybody on the Raw reunion, because there's not one person that we could look at on that roster that even generated a fucking tenth of the reaction that Stone Cold got on the Raw reunion. Stone Cold's entrance, Stone Cold's reaction is bigger now than anybody on the current active WWE roster. To me, that is embarrassing. It is embarrassing. The fact that you got to go get Stone Cold Steve Austin to sell tickets for a Madison Square Garden show for WWE when you have right now what is possibly the most talented roster in the entire world. You failed to creatively book anybody of importance here. You failed to make anyone feel important, and you have nobody to blame but yourself for now that you got to go get Stone Cold Steve Austin to sell tickets for these shows. How lame is that? And then when we read reports like this, that's the first thing that jumps off the page. WWE doesn't have a big enough star. They're so desperate to sell tickets that they got to go get Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's been retired for fucking years, to come back and make a special appearance, because they don't have anybody to do that on the active roster, or yet they don't have anybody on the active roster due to their incapability of booking anybody correctly. It's awful. It is absolutely downright awful. Raw has Austin, and The Undertaker is on SmackDown Live. Same reason, no difference, and the same reason why The Undertaker showed up at Extreme Rules to team with Roman Reigns against Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon. This will be Stone Cold Steve Austin's first time back in Madison Square Garden, which is the place where he hit Vince McMahon with a stunner all those years ago. Headline pay-per-views, including SummerSlam 98 against The Undertaker, there, and so on, and so on, and so on. He is going to be there as a special attraction. I'm sure he's not taking any bumps. He's not going to get involved in any current storylines. He's just there to probably do something, which I said and I joked about, which I'm sure will become a reality. He's probably there to suck Seth Rollins' cock at the end of the night, because I do have news on Austin and Rollins and what he said about Seth Rollins on his podcast. WWE gets an extra hour for Raw, therefore they can have Stone Cold go out there and cut a long-winded promo on somebody. But the important thing to take away from this, folks, is that, A, this is the go-home show before Clash of Champions, and Austin will not be getting involved in any storylines, and the reason why he is there is because WWE has failed to build up anybody to such an important level where they don't need Stone Cold Steve Austin. They only have themselves to blame here, and the only reason why Austin is back is because they don't have anybody on the current roster that is even in the same atmosphere as Stone Cold, popularity-wise, and it sucks. It sucks so badly that they don't have anybody on the active roster where you want to willingly pay to go see them live in this type of atmosphere. On Raw, on their flagship show, in Madison Square Garden, in New York City of all fucking places. Just a sad time for WWE right now. Speaking of Monday Night Raw, man, there were instances where Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode did look good together. I just don't understand why they were teamed up. And according to Dave Meltzer has a possible reason why Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode were teamed up in the first place. He says this on The Observer Live, that they needed wrestlers with unique abilities for their Clash of Champions tag team title match. Heavy Machinery didn't meet those qualifications, so they picked two guys who could work around Braun Strowman. This is such a cocksucker-like statement by Dave Meltzer, and this is what he says, and I quote, "I don't think they want to do a match with Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman against Heavy Machinery. Why not? Why not? How do you create new stars? By putting them in the spotlight with someone like Rollins and Braun Strowman. That would have been great for Heavy Machinery, and you would have had a legit tag team who is vying for the tag team titles. Meanwhile, you opt to go with two guys who are absolutely at the bottom of the barrel in every sense of the word on WWE television. Two losers who don't win matches, one who has lost in every outing since he's returned, and Bobby Roode, who has had start and stop pushes every single time and has not been used anywhere close to the success he had in NXT. I don't think they want to do a match with Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman against Heavy Machinery, which is failure number one, because putting Heavy Machinery in that instance would have made them credible right from the get-go. I don't think that's a good match for pay-per-view. Well, maybe WWE should do something different for pay-per-view, because this is a D-level pay-per-view to begin with, and I don't think Heavy Machinery is all that bad of a tag team at all. They're much more over than fucking Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode. I would rather them get the opportunity than two guys that absolutely don't deserve it. You could do the Revival, but the one thing with Roode and Ziggler is you got them in there with Strowman, and you know they'll work around Strowman, they'll know how to work around Strowman, and things of that nature. No, you can't do the Revival, because the Revival are more than likely getting a SmackDown Live Tag Team Championship match, so the fact that they were even in the Tag Team Turmoil match didn't make sense from the beginning. Didn't make sense from the beginning. So Ziggler and Roode could work around Strowman. That's his point here. It's not going to be anything you have to worry about. Whatever it is, they came up with a team. The team was good, so that's cool. I think it's a good thing that they came up with a good team. So many times they come up with bad teams. What are you saying here, Meltzer? What are you saying here? In no way did he try to rectify the fucking situation of Rollins and Strowman even having the tag team titles to begin with. Why do Rollins and Strowman have the tag team titles to begin with? That's my issue. Nobody knows. You ultimately shit on a already dead tag team division by putting the titles on two guys who I don't have any interest in seeing in a singles capacity. Now you got them as a tag team. Now we're getting them in a match here against Roode and Ziggler, and then we're getting a match between both of them, Strowman and Rollins, in the main event of this same show. You're building this show around Rollins and Strowman and using the tag team championships as a way to get either Strowman heel in this instance and get a championship, Universal Championship match out of it. That's what you think of the tag team titles? If I am a team like Heavy Machinery, if I am a legit tag team in this division, and I'm looking at this from an outsider's perspective, I'm kind of annoyed. Because why do you have tag team championships if you're only going to give them to two singles guys who are not even a legit tag team? That's what I don't get. People don't seem to be complaining about this. People seem to be okay with this. This is not okay. This is not okay. This goes to show you that WWE does not give a shit, on top of what we already assumed anyway, does not give a single shit about tag team wrestling, and that should not be the case. That should not be the case. Everybody in that tag team turmoil match got 2 or 3 minutes tops. The tag team turmoil match should have not even happened. You should have already had your teams in place that you want to specifically fight for those titles. You should have been building teams up from the get-go in the division to a point where you don't need Rollins and Strowman to do double duty on a show, because I have no interest in seeing them do double duty. I don't care about the riff-raff between both. I don't care about the back and forth between both. I don't care what leads them to the Universal Championship match. I don't really give a shit about them and them being disgruntled or how they are somehow turned against each other. I don't care. I can't find care in two guys I don't care about to begin with. And then if they do lose and you use this situation to get the titles on Roode and Ziggler, what do the titles mean on Roode and Ziggler? Roode should have been built up from the get-go. Ziggler shouldn't even be with the company because he is looked at as a complete loser. I can't find any interest in a team like Roode and Ziggler who are just losers on WWE television when you have an entire division wanting and waiting for an opportunity in that division to get on TV and ultimately fight for the tag team championships. I don't get it. I really don't understand it. This is one of the strangest and I would say dumbest moves that WWE has done. And you could even look at it as far as Braun Strowman goes. Look at how they fucked up Braun Strowman, and now they're desperately trying to get Strowman back into the spotlight by giving him a tag team championship and a Universal Championship match with Seth Rollins on the same show. It's like they're fast-tracking him for whatever reason, and Seth Rollins, they're desperately trying to get him to a point where he looks great, he looks cool. Look at Rollins, he's tag team and Universal Champion. Meanwhile, I sit here and I can honestly say with a straight face, I don't care about either one of these men, and I don't care about what they have as far as telling a story and how they get to the Universal Championship match. This cannot be the best scenario that they came up with. And why would Strowman be challenging Seth Rollins for the championship anyway? You got two baby faces. This could be very detrimental to Seth Rollins because Braun Strowman, you might not like him. I don't like him. I have fallen out of grace, out of love with Braun Strowman. Back in 2017, I was all for Braun Strowman beating Brock Lesnar. That was the time to do it, and WWE didn't strike while that iron was hot. Now I'm supposed to care about Braun Strowman. Yet here you have Seth Rollins, who's a babyface. Braun Strowman is a babyface, just as over as Seth Rollins is. Who do you think the fans are going to go for? Who do you think the fans are going to go for? More so, they're going to go for Braun Strowman because he is the novelty act here, and he appeals to the casual audience more than Seth Rollins does. So, with all that you've done to build up Seth Rollins and make him this big babyface, at the end of the night, he may get boos. He may get boos. How you get to the Universal Championship match, I don't know. If it's Braun Strowman walking away from Rollins, I still don't think that's going to be enough for people to boo Braun Strowman in the main event. I honestly think people are sick and tired of Rollins for whatever reason. Everything about Rollins has just come off completely unnatural, completely came off forced. WWE has Stone Cold Steve Austin showing up via Skype talking about how Seth Rollins is finally the Seth Rollins that we need, sucking his dick more and more and more. Everybody's sucking Rollins' dick. He's not as great as we think he is. He's not. He was back last year, and WWE fucked that up. Now he's nothing but a corporate fucking puppet who thinks he's the greatest wrestler in the world, and he's not. He's not. He's absolutely what I think he is, and he's a straight pussy. He's not a fighting champion. It's too late for that. You've already shown me the one Rollins that you did during the build for Lesnar's match at SummerSlam. That's the Rollins that I know, and that's the Rollins I'm not going to erase from my memory. Now you expect me to fall in love with Seth Rollins because he beat the Beast in a great match and won the tag team titles here with Braun Strowman? He makes himself look like a fucking idiot for even trusting Braun Strowman. He looks like a blithering idiot for even trusting Braun Strowman to begin with. Yeah, let me team with somebody who has eyes on my fucking tag team championship, on my Universal Championships, and doesn't give a shit about the team that we've developed here to win the tag team titles. And again, what does that say about the tag team titles when you got Braun Strowman who's staring at Seth Rollins and not even looking in his face, but he's looking at the title? All Braun Strowman cares about is the Universal Championship. He couldn't give a single shit about the Tag Team Championship. So what does that say about your overall division and your overall stance on the Tag Team titles? Complete irrelevancy. I don't give a shit about this. The team of Roode and Ziggler? Nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody. Is this WWE turning over a new leaf for tag team wrestling? No. It just goes to show you that they will continue to shit on tag team wrestling and that they have an entire division that they don't give a single fuck about. And that's sad. And again, I'm going to mention it again. When AEW has their tag team title tournament, I guarantee you WWE is going to follow suit like a fucking sheep. Like a sheep. They're going to see AEW doing great things with their tag team division, and then they're going to want to get on board, and it's going to expose WWE just as badly as the other times that they expose themselves. Because A, you're going to bring prominence and importance to AEW and what they're doing, and when we start seeing tag team wrestling on the main roster just as good as AEW, I wonder where that notion came from. Instead of doing it on your own, you got to watch them do it and then get on board with what they're doing just to compete and stick it to them. Meanwhile, you have all these great tag teams that I'm sure AEW would love to have, or any company would love to have, yet you neglect them every single week. Every single week. Where the fuck are AOP? Why aren't they in the tag team title discussion? Why did you even call them up? Where are the War Raiders? Why did you even call them up? And why aren't they in discussion for a tag team title match? Why? Why? Yet we got Roode and fucking Ziggler, who aren't even close to resembling a tag team, period. Awful. You got no heels. You got no heels on this roster to even feud with Seth Rollins. Yet you pick Braun Strowman because he's the biggest name outside of Seth Rollins on this brand that could be a believable opponent. So what happens after Strowman? We'll talk about that on Saturday. Because WWE, more than likely, is going all the way with Bray Wyatt. And if the rumors and the advertisements are correct, then they have to go all the way with Bray Wyatt. Which will then render Seth Rollins right back to square one. Which would make everything we've seen a complete waste of time with Seth Rollins. Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman is closely working with Sasha Banks. I like this. This is a good thing. Paul Heyman working closely with Sasha Banks on her new character and new direction. Wade Keller of the Pro Wrestling Torch noted that Sasha Banks' promo was written by Paul Heyman himself. Heyman has reportedly been very involved with Banks since her return, and he is instrumental in how she is being presented. The idea is that she is owning up to her backstage antics and is using this as a way to further manipulate the storyline to make herself look like a complete heel. Paul Heyman is historically one to embrace outside-the-box thinking, and this storyline that merges reality and kayfabe appears to be another tool he is using to get Sasha Banks over in a big way. This is only going to benefit Sasha Banks, because I do think Paul Heyman and the way he thinks, if he's working closely with no other outside infiltration or influence, is going to be a great thing for Sasha Banks. I complained about this on Monday night, and I think everybody kind of felt the same way, that she was handcuffed in a certain way to where she went out there and we expected her to say something and it kind of danced around everything we expected her to say, but it never came out fully. Watching it, I didn't even need to be backstage to see how everything came about. I didn't need to know anybody backstage. I didn't need anyone to come and tell me, that I was right on something. I just knew it. I felt it watching Monday Night Raw, that this woman, that Sasha Banks, was in handcuffs. There was a ball and chain on her, and it was a situation where she probably had something in mind she wanted to say, and she didn't go out there and say it because she wasn't allowed to say it. My source close to this situation, my source close to Sasha Banks, hit me up, and he told me whatever you were assuming and whatever you were feeling as far as Sasha Banks going out there on Monday night and not kind of diving deeper into the overall reason as to why she went away, your assumption of her having handcuffs on were 100% correct. The fact that this woman went out there and said what she legitimately wanted to say, is completely different than what they had her go out there and say. And I can confirm this 100%. The fact that everybody felt that she was handcuffed is 100% confirmed. I can tell you this in complete, factual, just whatever I heard. 100% fact. Everything that I'm stating to you right now is confirmed. There is a ball and chain on Sasha Banks. But the thing with Sasha Banks is she is so much of a fan of pro wrestling that if she went out there and said exactly what we wanted her to say, in the current climate of WWE television, in the current climate of just pro wrestling in general, if Sasha went out there and expressed herself in the way that I thought she should go out there and express herself, it might actually get her cheered. It might actually turn her into a babyface or keep her a babyface. And if I know anything about Sasha Banks and how she loves this business and is so serious about what she's doing, Sasha wants you to believe that she's the biggest asshole that you could possibly ever lay your eyes on. Sasha wants to go out there and be the biggest fucking heel that you've seen. And she's going to do everything within her power to make sure that you think she is a heel. Legitimately. Not some cool heel where she's getting cheers. Not some cool heel where she'll say the things that everybody wants to hear and then you'll cheer her for it. So the reason why Sasha didn't dive into the reasons of why she really walked away is because in the end, she thought it was going to get her cheered, and she wants to portray herself as the biggest heel she could possibly be. I understand that completely. I understand that 100%. So the reason why she was in handcuffs was because of that reason. And the reason why she was in handcuffs is because WWE just won't allow her to go out there and kind of do a CM Punk and dive into the real life issues. Because that's going to kind of shit all over the roster too. It's going to shit over the tag team titles. They don't want that. It'll shit on the Iconics. I'm sure Sasha doesn't want that either, you know? So the reason why Sasha went out there and did what she did on Monday night is because she wants to be careful about how she is presenting herself. She doesn't want to have another Becky Lynch situation happen, where Becky Lynch and Charlotte last year at SummerSlam, where WWE wanted Becky to be a heel, and the crowd completely negated that. They went the complete opposite. She attacked Charlotte, and she ended up getting cheered for it. Because WWE thought Charlotte was, or they thought they did, a good job of building Charlotte up as a babyface. This forgivable babyface. I don't want anything to do with you. I'm not stealing your spotlight. That completely backfired against WWE, and they don't want a similar situation like this to happen with Sasha Banks. Becky turned babyface, and Becky turned babyface, and Charlotte turned heel. They don't want Sasha Banks to be the babyface when Becky Lynch is the over babyface here. So Sasha has to be very careful about what she says and what she does from this point on. Sometimes the truth is not the best direction, and from what I understand, the overall truth, if Sasha went out there and told the truth, it would only get her cheered, and it would make her look more cool, and it would make her look, you know, CM Punk-like. It would be a certain way where defiance comes off as cool. Sasha wants to be a heel, and she's very keyed in on making people hate her. So I can't wait to see what she does. It's certainly an interesting thing, something that I really didn't think about. And I'm always for someone who is so involved like a Sasha Banks. I want her to come back, and I want her to be bigger than she was before. But with WWE, I just don't have any faith in making Sasha Banks feel that certain way. I just feel like WWE already dropped the ball on this for whatever reason, and I don't know. I don't know what this woman's going to do come Monday. When she comes out on Monday, the match is yet to be made. I'm assuming the match is going to be made for Clash of Champions, but I don't know. It's just something that happened there on Monday really kind of made me feel that WWE dropped the ball. But I at least I have a better understanding of why Sasha went out there and said what she did in the manner that she did. And I can respect that coming from her, who is so ingrained in this business and wants, you know, to come off in the way that she is meant to come off. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm very interested to see what she does and if she can overcome, you know, the people wanting to cheer her. We'll see what happens. Street Profits on Monday Night Raw. Why they have not wrestled yet. Meltzer talked about the Street Profits on the Observer Live. He says this, and I quote, "Like I said, when they first started showing up on Raw, there is a Paul Heyman decision to have them on Raw. Okay, that's the decision. The reason why there is Paul Heyman. But part of the idea was to have them not wrestle on the show. I mean, obviously, they will have to wrestle at some point. But right now, they're not wrestling because they want the Street Profits to get over based on their characters. Because you would think that if they let them wrestle right away on a show, that there would be, you know, a idea or a mentality to beat them right away. Because that's what they will do. Maybe if he figured out they could do this and maybe get over and be something special, so by the time that they wrestle, WWE thinks that these guys are legit and are a big deal, and they just won't be another NXT coming up to the main roster with no real build or hype around them. I get where they're coming from with this. I really do. But it doesn't make sense for the Street Profits to be on Monday Night Raw in the manner that they have been portrayed. It's coming off right now as cringe. And I honestly think with the Street Profits, they just lost the NXT Tag Team titles on Wednesday to the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. Now, more than likely, they will be wrestling on Monday Night Raw. Because there's no reason for them to be the NXT Tag Team Champions and just be spokesmen, reading off cue cards, to be hype men for Monday Night Raw. There's nothing hype about Monday Night Raw. They're not coming off as cool. But I don't understand. A couple of weeks of them doing this was fine. Now it's just dragged into being cringe. And if you take the Street Profits and you present them on Monday Night Raw the same way that they've been presented on NXT, with them in the crowd, partying with the crowd, showing them with the fans holding up the red Solo cups, and Montez Ford doing what he does in the ring, and Angelo Dawkins doing what he does in the ring and on the microphone, and Montez Ford showing that intensity and that charisma and how, you know, they come off as a package together. I think naturally, as far as what we've seen from them, they will naturally get over with the audience on the main roster because there's a lot there that WWE could work with. As far as their entrance, them partying with the crowd. If you're at a live show and you know the Street Profits are known for partying amongst the people in the crowd, you're going to want to be a part of that. You're going to want to see that. You're going to see that watching at home, and you'll be like, oh, these guys are exciting. Look at them partying with the crowd. Look at them. Look at Montez Ford deliver probably what is the best frog splash in the business right now. You know, look at them act as a tag team. Look at how great they are as a tag team. They're going to get over. These guys are not fucking bums that you just pulled off the street. They are talented. They're great at what they do. Let them shine and let them get over. If they don't get over, then go back and do something different. Tweak something here and there. But you got a total package in this tag team, and you're not using them based on what brought them to the dance. I hate shit like this. I really do. And WWE will probably just end up breaking them up. Montez Ford will go to 205 Live, if there still is even 205 Live around, and Angelo Dawkins will fade into obscurity. I don't know, man. WWE, to me, they already dropped the ball on the Street Profits. Get them in the ring. If your intent is to have them on Monday Night Raw, now your intent is to get them in the ring. They're no longer NXT Tag Team Champions. Get them in the ring and get them in the ring with a tag team and showcase what they could do. Get that entrance on Monday Night Raw and get the excitement built around them. And enough is enough with this shit, man. Stop ruining tag team wrestling and tag teams, legit tag teams, on this brand. WWE changed the plans for the War Raiders on Monday Night Raw. PW Insider notes that, going from one tag team to another, WWE noted, or PW Insider I should say, noted that WWE had initially scheduled an enhancement tag team match for the Viking Raiders. However, those plans did not happen. Instead, the former NXT Tag Team Champions were placed in a tag team turmoil match. Now, we've seen the War Raiders, Viking Raiders, whatever, take out plenty of enhancement teams in the past. Therefore, watching them mix it up with the OC was actually quite nice, even though they didn't get any reaction from the live audience. Those two teams also have some history with one another, which would be nice if WWE did pay that a revisit. The War Raiders didn't seem too happy about how their time in the tag team turmoil match ended. They cut a very intense promo on WWE.com saying that all teams on Raw and SmackDown and NXT are going to be raided. So that was pretty much that. So the plans changed for the War Raiders on Monday Night Raw. A, why did the tag team... I mentioned this before. Why did the tag team turmoil match happen? And if you didn't want the War Raiders to lose, why did you even put them in the fucking match to begin with? That's what I don't understand. All you did here is give us something that should have never happened, and you made a fucking mockery out of it. On no show should these teams go in there and get disqualified in 3 minutes. Probably less than, 60 seconds? How does that make the War Raiders look? How does that make the OC look, who just lost the tag team titles a week ago? They're in this match to vie for another opportunity to get another shot at those titles, and they completely and blatantly just did not listen to the referee and ultimately ruined their chances. How does that make them look, and how does that make the War Raiders look? Why were they booked for this thing to begin with if you didn't want these teams to lose? This is the point that I tried to make earlier. Why did you put Rollins and Strowman together to win the titles? Now you're stuck with these teams, and WWE has it in their minds that none of these teams are going to look good in the ring against Rollins and Braun Strowman as tag team champions. How does that make any sense to you guys? It doesn't. There's no positives to come out of that. Because you're stalling an entire division, a division of quality fucking teams that you got, all for Rollins and Braun Strowman. And then in this instance, you got a tag team turmoil match that gave us Ziggler and Roode winning the thing, shitting on all the other legit tag teams in this division, and you put the War Raiders in the OC, which could realistically be a tag team fucking title feud if you put some effort into it. You put these two teams in there. You didn't want these teams to lose, and they end up looking ridiculous in the end anyway because you didn't want them to lose. So you book a no contest and a double DQ. I would have rather them I would have rather them go out there and destroy another set of enhancement talent and just spare me the embarrassment that was that tag team turmoil match. That's what I would have did. It would have been nothing but give us the same old, but at least you wouldn't put them in a situation where they embarrass themselves. If you didn't want them to lose, there's no reason why you should put them in that match anyway, because you did more harm than good in that outcome. Seth Rollins, speaking of Seth Rollins, a couple of Seth Rollins notes here that I have. Rollins and Becky were not on Raw. Goes back to what I stated a couple of weeks ago. You don't need to have them on the show every single week. Becky showed up in a promo, I believe. No, she showed up on a promo. I don't even know if it was on Monday or the previous Monday, where she said Sasha is the greatest woman on the roster to never be great. I love that. But Rollins and Becky were not on this week's show. Rollins did appear in a backstage segment where a Universal title match was set up for Clash of Champions, but he actually wasn't there. Both he and the man were on vacation in Hawaii, according to PW Insider. The newly engaged couple were still watching Raw because Becky Lynch actually tweeted out something to Sasha Banks, trolling her about her promo on Monday Night Raw. Neither champion was at Raw in New Orleans because they are still enjoying the much-deserved time off for their engagement. Good on them. Good on them. They don't need to be on every show, not just because they got engaged. It would be perfectly okay if Rollins and Becky, both on the same week, did not make the actual show. It's up to you to book talent accordingly where you don't need to use them on every single Monday night. Steve Austin says Rollins could get better on his promo ability. That is an understatement. He says this, and I quote, Seth is a tremendous worker, and I just think, man, when he turns up that entertainment factor, because he's pretty reserved on the horn. And man, if you go back and watch my promos, I mean, I never know what I'm going to say. I have things I want to say because of storylines and angles and stuff like that, so I know where I'm going, but I'll stutter or I'll miss a word, but it's all emotion. Kind of what I do here. I might stutter or I might repeat something now and then again, over and over again, but it's not scripted. The only thing I have is bullet points on my laptop here, or bullet points when I'm at home, and I just go in literally off the script. That's why it's called off the script. But yes, Austin is right on Rollins. He continues and says this, and I quote, I think all that emotion sells tickets. Also, being larger than life sells tickets, but WWE does not book any larger than life characters because they don't want anybody being larger than the WWE. Larger than life characters sell tickets. So if he could just learn to amp it up a little bit, because every time I had my microphone in hand, I was trying to channel and emit energy, and people feed off of that. Rollins does not do that. Rollins is so gracious. Rollins is so humble. You know, instead of going out there and showing intensity as a champion, Rollins has become pussified. Simple. And I cannot get over the fact that Rollins cut that promo on Monday Night Raw where he willingly walked out with a steel chair and got his ass handed to him by Brock Lesnar and then says, you know, this is all I know. This is all I know. And come SummerSlam, I guarantee to beat Brock Lesnar. Give me a break. You don't want that out of a babyface fucking champion. You want a babyface to be somewhat fucking defiant, and you want him to have some fucking balls. When has Johnny Gargano ever said anything like that? He always went out there and made it about the fucking title. I'm gonna fucking die for this bitch. Rollins came off like a sniveling pussy. And he still reminds me of a sniveling pussy because he hasn't done anything to separate himself from being the corporate champion that we see now and what we seen then, building from SummerSlam. Nothing. Everything remains the same with this guy. Nothing about this guy stands out. I will vouch for Rollins. I will vouch for him in 2018 when he was the Intercontinental Champion. That Rollins was just on fire. I don't know what they did for him to get to that point, but it was all him, and he left that emotion in the ring. He was a legit champion. Now, I don't know what the fuck he is. I really don't know what he is. In WWE, honestly, you talk about dropping the ball, they dropped the ball on this guy to a point where I can't wait for him to lose the title. Having him with the Universal Championship is not doing anything for Monday Night Raw or the Universal title in general. Simple as that. We're going to end on this Rollins note, guys, which to me really isn't that big of a deal because the PW 500 is nothing more than a way to sell publications and a way to sell clicks or buy clicks or sell magazines to get notoriety. PWI 500. Who topped the PWI 500 list this year? Seth Rollins tops the list. Now, this, from where we seen the announcement be made about this, you could see it stems from more than likely what happened last year and how important Rollins was last year going on into this year and all the important things that he's been a part of. He was Intercontinental Champion. He had the feud with Dolph Ziggler leading into SummerSlam last year. He had the feud with Dean Ambrose. He was a part of 16 Shield reunions since last year. He won the Royal Rumble. He went on to WrestleMania. He won the world title there, right? And he dropped the title to Brock Lesnar, and he then won the title back again at SummerSlam. So he was in some heavy shit. So yes, all of that would constitute Seth Rollins being the number one guy in all of pro wrestling, because he did a lot to gain that honor, and that's what they look for. What was this guy in, and how much of the important stuff was he a part of? He was part of a lot of it, because if you look at who's number 8 on this list, Mr. Omega didn't do much of anything from, I would say, when was the last time we seen Omega in really something substantial? When he was the champion, right? When he was IWGP champion. Then he dropped the title, and he dropped it to Okada. And after that, he wasn't really in anything. He was waiting around. He was a free agent. He was waiting for All Elite Wrestling to be announced, and he really hasn't done much of anything with AEW. A couple of matches here with the Lucha Brothers and the Elite. A match with CIMA, right? Nothing important. A whole deal with Jon Moxley leading to their match later this year. So that's why he's at number 8. But if Omega was in just as much important shit as Seth Rollins, Omega would be number 1. I don't even think Rollins is number 1. He might be number 1 in your eyes, but he's not number 1 in my eyes. Kofi Kingston rounds out the top 5. It's Okada at number 5. Some of you might take great disappointment in that. Kofi Kingston's number 4, AJ Styles number 3, Daniel Bryan number 2. He was the WWE champion. Going into WrestleMania, that's a big fucking deal. Kofi Kingston won the WWE championship and has had a decent run as WWE champion. That's the reason why he's number 4. Roman Reigns is on this list. Hiroshi Tanahashi's number 9. Will Ospreay's number 10. Will Ospreay's probably gonna be up there higher next year because of what he's doing this year. And I can't agree with this number 1 spot. I really can't. I don't know. First of all, I don't know where Tommaso Ciampa is in the top 10. And I don't know why Johnny Gargano ain't number 1 and Tommaso Ciampa number 2 on this list. I just really don't understand that. They were in probably the greatest storyline that WWE has told of the modern era. And the matches that they've had and the importance that they brought NXT and the NXT Championship. I don't give a shit what Seth Rollins does. In my eyes, Johnny Gargano is number 1. Johnny Gargano should be number 1 in this year's top 10 PWI. But I'm not going to sit here and cry, bitch, and moan about it. I just don't think that Seth Rollins is all that important to be number 1. And I don't think what he did is more important than what Ciampa and Gargano did for NXT. I don't. Because Seth Rollins, no matter how much he did as far as importance goes throughout the year, it still ended up giving Rollins that same old feeling. He wasn't, a huge changing aspect to the overall quality of the shows. The shows still remained the same. Meanwhile, Johnny and Ciampa brought NXT to another level where they were completely untouchable. How they're not number 1 and 2 respectively on this list is absolutely a fucking downright crime. That's just my thoughts and opinions on that. Let me know who you guys think is number 1 on this year's PWI Top 500. Right now, it's Rollins. Top 10 again, quickly. Rollins, Bryan, Styles, Kingston, Okada, Gargano, Reigns, Omega, Tanahashi, and Will Ospreay. That rounds out the top 10 for the PWI Top 500. Guys, I'm getting out of here, and I'm thirsty. So I'm going to go to some breweries, enjoy the rest of the day. I hope to find time to be back here again for part 2, because I got a lot of Bray Wyatt news. Is Bray Wyatt set to become the Universal Champion? We will find out, and I am sure we will go over that at some point this weekend. Make sure you guys go check out all the other videos, man. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW, Off the Script Extra, all out news, rumors, and preview and predictions. Make sure you guys go and check all that stuff out. Follow me on social media at JD from NY206 on both Twitter and Instagram. And please check out my sponsors, harrys.com/script for your $13 value trial set. Hit that thumbs up, guys. If you have not subscribed, please do so. If you enjoyed anything on this podcast or if you enjoyed anything on the channel this week, please make sure you guys subscribe. And I will see you guys hopefully back here for part 2 of Off the Script. And then we got All Out tomorrow night. I might have some special guests as we do a very special review of the show, so look forward to that. It's going to be great. And I will see you guys right back here for more content this weekend. Labor Day weekend, AEW weekend, All Out weekend. Take care, guys. Again, hit that thumbs up. I'll see you right back here on part 2 for Off the Script. See you then.